You're listening to the Platte River Bard.
There we go. Hello, and welcome to the Platte River Bard. This is Chris Berger.
And I'm Sherry Berger.
And we are here today with Barry Carman. He is the director and resident dramaturg and director of engagement at the Bluebarn Theatre. He is directing their current show, which is in its upcoming last weekend, Heroes of the Fourth Turning by Will Arbery. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Mr. Carman.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here with y'all.
Well, thank you for taking the time.
Yes, absolutely. So you guys are currently in the coming up on the very last weekend of Heroes of the Fourth Turning.
Correct.
How is it? How has the run been?
Oh, it's been extraordinary. It's extraordinary on just the base level of welcoming people back indoors to the theater again and being able to gather in this way, and especially around this piece, which is so very timely and instigates conversations that need to be had and are long overdue. So it's been a super solid run. Performances are extraordinary. The actors are amazing, and this show is we're really proud of it. So
it does confront a lot of themes and a lot of issues that are really right up in our face, and we're dealing with currently right now. In a lot of our lives and all of our lives. And as far as the run has been, has it kind of had the kind of effect and started the kind of conversations that you were hoping for? Has it kind of done what you were sort of hoping that it was going to do?
Yeah, it's impossible to tell what folks are leaving the theater with and exploring, but like anecdotally, this has been, I've heard it called exhausting in a great way. The most uncomfortable I've been in a theater in forever. I've heard folks just using it as a catalyst for self-examination of themselves and where they stand on all the myriad issues in the play. And then we've been able to have some really fruitful conversations post-show. After each of our shows, we hold space for the audience to decompress and talk about what's coming up on them. And those are guided by a facilitator. And then we've also had a couple really great panel discussions. One with a couple of social justice advocates and theater artists, and another with folks who work in gender and sexuality resource advocacy at UNO. And those were everything you imagine they might be. A way to frame this contextual actual setting and politics and characters of the play. So we've been able to sort of telescope out and say, because the play doesn't give you that. The play doesn't give you the other side. The play gives you very much the ideologies, the viewpoints, the opinions of this very particular set of social conservatives, social and religious conservatives. So we thought it was important to bring the conversation, to balance that conversation with these support conversations, and also quite a lot of program material in order to, let people know what they're walking into, give them a way to process it out afterwards, but also provide the lens through which the Bluebarn approached this exploration of this culture, which is through a white supremacy lens and through the lens of a exploration of empathy. What we owe and what we owe to the people that we violently disagree with, how we cross that bridges, how we deal with the atomization of our society, and our inability to speak to one another, and what that means moving forward. And at the same time, how we fight these very, very dangerous ideas that are at work in our socio-political culture
For sure.
that are actually harming multiple intersecting communities,
Right.
Including white people.
Yeah.
So,
Especially.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot. I mean, and then at the end of the day, since the play doesn't give you any answers, I think that the biggest takeaway from most people is like, well, what do I do about that?
Yeah.
What do I do about all of that? Because
Right.
it's everything. And what's my next action step? Toward
Right.
on any of these issues, or my complicity on any of these issues. So
Right.
that's been fascinating. So it doesn't leave you. It doesn't leave you necessarily with a skip in your step and joy in your heart, but it does
Right.
sort of present you with the onus and make you aware of your responsibility, to your fellow humans on the planet, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, unless people know. I mean, this isn't some kind of ambush. I mean, everybody's here for a specific
They
reason.
know what it is.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it was based on a book that was called Heroes of the Fourth Turning, right? And so the four turning points are high, awakening, unraveling, and crisis. And they used each of those through like the eras. So the high was, like the 50s and maybe early 60s. The awakening was some of the civil rights movements from the 60s and 70s, and the unraveling was the culture wars of the 80s and 90s. And now we're at that point for the crisis war, which is where we are now.
So it's set at a very particular time. It's set in
Yeah.
2017, right after the Charlottesville riots.
Yeah.
That's
right after
right, yes.
Steve Bannon got fired from the Trump administration.
Right.
Right before this incredible eclipse that crossed the entire North American continent.
Yeah.
So and then it was produced for the first time just before the pandemic in the fall of 2018, I
Okay.
believe,
Okay.
at Playwright Horizons.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it's, and you're right, it's set, the whole premise is that we are at a crisis point as a society.
Yeah.
And that the generational cycles that you just described can be traced back all the way back through Western
Right.
civilization, basically. And that's what the authors of the source material book tried to do, to say that, history moves in cycles, which is not a terribly new idea. It's an idea as old as Plato, at least, and
Right.
cyclical time is how many cultures conceive of history and time space. So the particular crisis that's coming, according to these authors and according to the characters in this play, is now. We're either just about to dip into it, or we are currently living within it and don't have the perspective to realize that that's the case.
To realize it's
So-
already here. Right.
Right.
But it's already here, that we are, now is the time where we need to choose sides and gird our loins for battle and vanquish these enemies, because we're the heroes. And, the play suggests that it's both conservatives and progressives, that are whatever, either or binary divide you want to split people in camps of, who
Right.
feel that they are these heroes, and that this is a defining moment, for our democracy, for, human beings on planet Earth. And if you have a mind to look that way, then yes, we are absolutely in the middle of a social awakening / health crisis / racial and social justice awakening / climate crisis / all of these things. And our democracy still feels very precarious,
Yes.
even though Trump is not in office anymore, or
It still is.
or if you're on the other side, even though Obama's not on the office anymore, it feels like we are in this extended crisis point for a lot of folks. Or a lot of folks feel that way, and there's not enough of us that feel that way. And
Correct.
these characters in the play, and perhaps some of us on the progressive side are still screaming into the wilderness, going, wake up, pay attention.
Right.
Just stuff happening, and
Right.
we need you, right? So it's interesting that everything that is prescient about this play, coming from like 2018,
Yeah.
because it was written before the pandemic,
That's what
before
yeah.
George Floyd, before the January 6th insurrection,
Yes.
Right.
right?
Right. That's what I
And
was
then-
kind of wondering, because
Yeah.
it was written and it was done basically in 2017, but we've come so far already through things. Where do you
Yeah.
feel that it ends up now? Where do you feel that we are in that process? Do you think we're
I mean,
any better
first-
for it?
Do you think, you personally, do you think we've hit the crisis point?
I think there's so much worse that could come.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, I think you're right.
I feel like, there's a way of looking at the world around us right now and saying, pandemic, racial reckoning, climate crisis. These are just the opening shots of like a bigger to-do, unless
Yeah.
we come together. And that's why this play is also about empathy and what our responsibilities are toward one another, and
Yes.
how can we solve these, work together on these things without demonization, without dehumanization, without
Yes.
the cost to BIPOC and LGBTQIA2S plus community members, right? How can we take stock and, not make this crisis the final crisis?
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
please. Yeah.
To reverse back into that high or whatever. Not that I subscribe terribly much to this generational theater, but that's the dream, right?
Sure.
That somehow all these shocks to our systems will force the system to change. So
Right. Well, and I noticed, so this is written from the perspective of someone who's liberal but has family who is conservative, and I noticed that through some of the dialogue that I've read through, it really does explain their thought process of where they are and what they believe and why they believe it. And I thought that was really interesting to bring that out, because I think every character in this play kind of comes from a different perspective as far as their support of Trump and conservatism.
There you go.
But why do we get so hurt when someone that we love thinks so differently than we do, and how do we counter that?
right, and a big response, both from the artists involved in this process and our community members, has been like, yeah, I know people who hold these views. They're my family. In some cases, they're my friends. If I still talk to them, if we haven't gone that far, right?
Right.
And one of the things that this play does so well is that it highlights the disagreement and incongruency even among folks that are supposedly like-minded, supposedly share a particular political party or religious faith. They are as divided or have different strategies towards creating the change that they want to see in the world as anybody that we know or disagree with. Like, it's just like seeing a mirror image of you and your friends talking politics or culture or art or anything. And one of the things this play does also within that is strip away the myth that the folks on the quote-unquote other side or people that disagree with you are idiots or stupid. These are among the most articulate characters that I've ever seen on a stage in terms of really being able to argue their viewpoints with a depth of intention and critical reflection that we don't even give the beliefs that we hold. Like, I'm not sure I could win a debate with any of these characters in the play, right? I'm pretty sure I could shut down. It's also a little bit of a wake-up call for me anyway to better articulate why body autonomy and reproductive rights are important, to better articulate trans issues, LGBTQIA plus issues, BIPOC, social justice issues, and to not let myself off the hook in terms of, well, I live in this echo chamber, me and my friends, and the people I work with, the people I gather with, the people I spend time with, and we're all basically on the same page, no matter how we disagree, and yet can I advocate fully for those issues when my audience isn't of a like mind? can I actually make these cases without getting angry, without resorting to attacks on the humanity of the other side or whatnot? Am I even able to do that?
Right. And I think that's part of the problem, that people aren't. We're so polarized. I think we're even more polarized than we were in a lot of ways in just the last 2 years.
We're more polarized than we've ever been in my lifetime.
I think so. Yeah. Well, this is such a needed play. It's like you could probably almost do this play, a couple times a month even. So you've been with the Bluebarn for a while. You have directed some other things. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came to Bluebarn? Because you actually came from Georgia, or you went to school in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia, at Emory.
Yes, I went to Emory.
And your degree was in theater studies. So is that a little bit different than theater? Is that more
a little more broad?
Yeah.
Yeah. So theater programs. You can get a degree in theater, or there's performance focused programs that are like BFAs. Our program, it was interesting in the sense that it was both it was a department in a liberal arts college that was attached to a professional theater in residence at that school. So their focus was not so much preparing us to go out and be professional actors in the world, but preparing us to be scholar, artist, athletes, right? So there was a heavy focus on theater history and aesthetics and criticism, and exposing us to multiple genre styles, periods, and theatrical performance. There's differences there. Tried to round it out and connect it as much as possible in terms of shared coursework with like the English department, the history department, philosophy departments, whatever, so that you weren't necessarily training to be an actor, although there was that. It was training to get a full appreciation of what theater is, what it has been, and what it could be. So, we did a lot of fun things like build a replica of the old Globe Theater in our theater and explore Renaissance plays for like a year. We spent some genre time with the big daddies like Restoration comedies, Chekhov, Beckett. I don't know. It was a shockingly amazing program that I didn't expect to find going to what it's basically a pre-med, pre-law focused institution, and starting out as a major and then just sort of wrong-footing my way into this bigger world. So.
Sounds fascinating, actually. Yeah.
So how did you end up here in Nebraska from Georgia?
My parents are Benson Bunnies. And my father was in the military, so I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, mostly. That was our favorite duty station. And when I went away to school in Atlanta, they decided to move back to Omaha to be closer to their extended family as they aged. So
yeah, so it made sense for you to come back here. And you've been with Bluebarn since 2002.
I started one day. I saw that Bluebarn was doing Arcadia by Tom Stoppard, which is one of my favorite plays, and I was like, oh, well, you can't do that without me. So I made some calls and said, hey, can I be the dramaturg on your production of Arcadia? And delightfully, Houston Walkinshaw, the director of that play, said yes. And I think I was in a show the next year, and then by the following year, they let me start this collaborative ensemble called Witching Hour that did late-night ensemble shows at the Bluebarn, original works for about 10 years. Witching Hour lasted, and I was with that company for about 5 years. And then moved back to Atlanta for a while, and then moved back here for a while, and I've been on staff for about the last, I think, 4 or 5 years now.
So what is coming up for the Bluebarn? I know we've got a Christmas, another very die-hard Christmas.
Oh, yes. I guess that just went I guess that just went over gangbusters last year. I'm friends with
year before.
Josh, or year
Year before last. There's
Excuse
that dark
me,
year.
Yes, not the year that nothing happened, but the year before that.
Right.
Yeah. My buddy Josh was in that, and I guess he's going to be doing it again. So, I guess,
yes, he is.
Yeah, he's just great. Oh, I'd love to see him in that.
We love Josh, and we hope to get you back in here. Yeah, it's almost the entire cast is returning.
Oh, cool.
It's crazy. The last time we put this up, it was the whole run was completely sold out before we even opened, which never happens.
Yeah.
Actually, it happened for one other show that year for Red Summer, where we sold out before the production opened. But we're delighted to bring it back. It's hilarious. It's laugh-filled. People can just like relax about it and not have to think too hard on, well, for example, all the things we're asking them to think about for Heroes of the Fourth Turning. But
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
it's holiday joy, and it's going to be rad.
So that opens November 26th and runs through December 19th. Are you going to be directing that?
No, I'm actually AD on that. That's Susan Clement over. I'm assistant directing that.
Okay.
It's a remount, right? So we're just basically recreating this experience of 2 years ago, seeing if we can't remember what we did and all of our dance steps and how to sing some songs. And these actors are just going to kill it, and it's going to be amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing what a whole year will do.
Yeah.
And then after that, you've got a homegrown one that's written by Bofield Berry.
Yes. Well, before that, we do King Lear. So
that's right.
In March, we'll be doing Shakespeare's most intimate embrace of the heights and depths of human experience.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. It's in March. Yeah.
So that'll be in March, and we have a lovely director, Jill Anderson, who's a longtime Bluebarner as well, directing that piece. And then yes, we do Buffalo Women, a Black Cowgirl musical dramedy by Bofield Berry and J. Isaiah Smith. And this is a piece that we workshopped last year in the midst of the pandemic as a part of our Bonfire series. It's just extraordinary. It tells the story of Black lives on the frontier in the immediate aftermath of Juneteenth. So when folks finally got around to telling folks in Texas that they were free and had been for a while, I'm sorry, we're just getting down here to tell you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then following these extraordinary lives as they chart new paths for themselves. It's based on a huge depth of historical research by the playwright, but on real life figures who made their ways in the seem right now unimaginable, at least from what we know of history, how much has been hidden from us about history, but incredible Black women, business owners, stagecoach drivers, Buffalo soldiers, and it's a rollicking good time.
Sounds
it's
amazing.
Filled with song and dance and humor and a little timey-wimey stuff too, some anachronisms, some just plain fun stuff. It's the Wild West, right? It's the Wild West, like you've never seen it before.
That's fantastic.
Neat.
We're so excited about that.
And you have some other events that you do outside of your theatrical productions. Do you have any of those?
Bluebarn thinks of itself as not just a theater production company, but also a civic and community space. So more and more, like around every show, in terms of our engagement events, and like even between shows, we want to make ourselves available to the community in new and exciting ways, like to find ways for us to gather and make the Bluebarn available for gathering. So, for example, we just hosted the Omaha Lit Fest right before Heroes got into full swing, and then we've started this new storytelling series called Musing. Another local artist named Seth Fox is heading that up, but every quarter we put out a call for storytellers, and these aren't necessarily actors or seasoned performers. It's more like what you might hear on The Moth radio hour, and they build stories around a particular theme. Our first one just happened a couple weeks ago. It was about movies and their impact on us. The next one happens in the middle of January, and that one's going to be about stories about the unforeseen consequences or best intentions, called It Seemed Like a Good Idea at the Time. And so each quarter there'll be a whole new roster of first-time storytellers or seasoned pros who gather and tell their stories over the course of the evening, and these events are free and open to the public. Sometimes they'll be in our outdoor space, sometimes they'll be in the theater, depending on the weather. but we're really excited about that. And the first one just went gangbusters. It was sold out. Not that the ticket cost anything. We did ask folks to reserve. So yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
That is happening. And the other big thing we're doing this year is preparing for our big Damn Door Festival of new works for the American theater. That'll kick off next summer, but for the next 9 months, there will be 12 artists in residency at the Bluebarn creating 3 new works for the American stage. These primarily, each of the projects in some way fosters or highlights America's journey anyway, if not success quite, at equity and inclusion, representation, diversity, and social and economic justice. So we have chosen the 3 projects for that, and we're about to announce them, so I can't quite give them away on this program, but so there'll be teams of 4 artists who will be workshopping, developing these pieces over the course of this next year, and then next summer we add 4 more resident artists to bring those shows to life in a festival environment at the end of August, early September, and that's nothing that's been seen in the city thus far, and it also enables us to support like artists over a long period of time with the resources and more importantly like the paycheck to actually produce their best work and bring their full selves to it. And each of the 3 projects has a different focus. So one's like a kind of traditional playwright-centered project, and one is an ensemble project, a community-centered ensemble project, and the other one is a design-led project where it's really the designers of the theater experience that take the lead in shaping how the event will play out. It's so gratifying to be able to take 3 wildly different approaches and support 12 incredibly distinct emerging artists outside of a traditional production model. And it's going to be rad.
Neat.
Yeah.
Is what it's going to be.
And you guys have all cleaned up too on top of the flooding that you had recently. What was that, this summer?
Yes, that was just at the end of the summer.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, we
didn't to recoup and everything.
We didn't take quite as much damage as many folks around the community, but it was not insignificant.
Right, exactly.
It was dirty. It was wet and dirty.
Yes.
But it sounds like you guys are back on track and have things in order for the season, and I'm really happy that you're able to do that. So.
Yeah, it sounds like an amazing season of shows and events you guys got lined up coming up. So.
Lots of really interesting ones.
Oh, yes. Hopefully we can get back and talk with you folks again here soon about some of these other things, because we would love to do that. That would be fantastic.
For sure.
Yes.
Any old time you want.
Wonderful. Well, we're vaccinated. We've gone a few places. We're a little bit picky. We've done some podcasts even outside, just for people's comfort level and ours as well.
You can set up anywhere. As long as we can have one thing plugged in, and we always bring a very long extension cord. So.
And I'm working on that. I'm going to get one of those things for it.
We are good to go.
Right. It's such a pleasure to talk to you. I know that I've seen you on Zoom calls in the last year or so as well. I never got a chance to talk to you, so it's just really nice to be able to sit down and talk with you about all of the work that you're doing, and really kudos for the social justice issues that the Bluebarn offers.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed I wasn't able to go see this show. It sounds like that's a hell of a show to put on. You know what I mean? To decide, we're going to do this, and so good for you for doing that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I think a lot of theaters would look at that and go, "Hey, that's really great." I don't think that's for us.
Right.
You know what I mean? And good for you for saying, that's for us.
But it sounds like it's working for you too. I mean, you're sold out for Saturday night, but you've got some tickets on Sunday left. So.
Yes, we still have some space Sundays.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, for us, it's like like centering whiteness as a subject of exploration is anti-racist work, and it's really, this play is actually kind of a tool for white people to explore their own complacency and complicity, and
that's hard.
It's a hard thing to do, and it's a discomforting thing to do, but a necessary thing to do, right?
Yes.
And also, and it's an amazing play. Like it's a really effective, wrenching, visceral drama. So
nice.
That certainly helps.
Yeah, I think so. And I wonder how many people who don't want to take a look at this and do the introspective shadow work with it, if they realize that it's not very long before we're the minority, and how it then it turns into the golden rule, right?
Yeah.
How do you want to be treated?
Yes.
Right.
Let's try to deal with it sooner rather than later.
So
because
so
the longer we wait,
put
to
yourself
deal with
in
it,
that position
the
now.
worse it gets.
Yes. Think of yourself outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And soon we'll be a majority minority country, and that's a glorious day to look forward to. But I will say that we are already a global minority.
Yes.
But BIPOC folks are the majority of our global population, and it's just the
Right.
the history of white Western civilization that is like fought to keep white folks and their priorities on top, and that's a 2,000-year legacy that we're trying to overcome here. So
Yeah.
Yep.
good luck to us all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Good luck to us all. Well, thank you, sir, very much for speaking with us today.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And let me ask you a dumb question, because I have recently come across this. We both have, in terms of like a position or being named at theaters now, the dramaturg. That's new for me. What is the dramaturg? When you see that in the program, somebody so and so is the dramaturg. What do they do? Who is that?
So it can take like a wide variety of forms. I am I'm an institutional dramaturg, so it's production support, but also literary management, assisting in season planning, and the way that I function, it's also very closely related to the engagement work we do. So it's thinking of the play holistically and how you can support both the production in terms of resources, research materials, presence in the room, the integration of design elements / acting style / director, just making sure that all of those pieces are working together in concert with the director at hand. But then it's also, staying abreast of the new play field and seeing what theaters across the country are doing, and, being in community with other dramaturgs at other theaters in terms of best practices and protocols as, we all engage with this cultural moment. So it can be anything from, I am the research role in a production.
Okay. It is malleable, but you are assisting usually a production in some way that is not usually maybe specifically covered by the director or the stage manager.
Right.
I guess is what you could say.
Yeah.
And doing like research and other things and assisting
Just
both
thinking
of
of
those
the play
folks.
holistically while the director is thinking about
I like
the direction
that.
on stage.
I think that's neat.
Mainly, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about it holistically. It's like, how is this play going to land with the community? What kind of outreach do we need to do? What partners do we need to engage with?
Yeah.
Can we engage with? What kind of audiences do we want to cultivate for this particular show? If it happens to center a particular constituency, we want to make sure those folks are in the room. How can we, as a theater, if I'm thinking about my role as a resident dramaturg, how can we grow our footprint regionally and nationally? How can we better support our artists? How can we get an increasingly more diverse and inclusive audience base into the theater? How broad a swath of the community can we serve? Those are all questions that sort of bigger picture questions that entails. On a production level, it's like, how do we do justice to this show? And that's what everybody's here for, and no matter what role you play in the production. And if there's not a dramaturg in the room, dramaturgy happens anyway, because dramaturgy is basically just like how this show comes into being and how it best honors the intention of the playwright at the intersection of, the artistic philosophy of the producing entity, in this case, Bluebarn Theatre, and then at the intersection of the community and the particular time we're living in, right? So those questions either get answered or ignored or answered badly without someone specifically managing it, but also every role in the theater is in some part doing dramaturgy. So if you're an actor, you caretake some of those same questions. If you're a designer, you do as well. Directors obviously do their own dramaturgy. And then the sort of collaborative element is to bring all these dramaturgies together, and that's what theater is about. I would say dramaturgs are not the sole arbiter and owner of the dramaturgical function, I guess.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I've been seeing that pop up lately, and I'm just, God, I feel stupid asking, and so I'm like, oh, just ask.
I think it's kind of a newer thing.
It's newer to me anyway. Now, what that means, I don't know, but it's newer to me. So.
I can blow your mind a little bit. There's also new play dramaturgs. There's dramaturgs that just work with playwrights in developing their pieces. There's dance dramaturgy. There's community dramaturgy.
Yeah.
All of these are like sort of splintered or focuses within the broader field. And if you ever just want to do a deep dive, it's really fascinating. That's all.
It's very fascinating. Yeah.
Fascinating.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really look forward to seeing these and working with you more as well. So
yes, thank you so much.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much once again to Barry Carman, the current director of the last weekend of Heroes of the Fourth Turning at Bluebarn Theatre.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for listening and supporting the arts in the Platte River area and beyond. Please subscribe to our podcast so you are sure to catch all of our future episodes and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Music for this podcast was used with permission by Screaming Skull Productions. See you next time on the Platte River Bard.